In Nigeria's booming fertility industry, the demand for human eggs has skyrocketed, creating a shadowy market where young women often face exploitation and health risks. Despite the growing need for assisted reproductive technology, the country lacks a comprehensive legal framework to regulate egg donation. Reports suggest that young women are being financially coerced into undergoing multiple egg donations, often without adequate health precautions. Critics argue that these exploitative practices thrive in the absence of robust regulations, leaving donors vulnerable. The National Health Act of 2014 remains the only legal framework governing egg donation in Nigeria. Section 53 criminalizes the exchange of human tissue and blood products for money, imposing fines and up to a year's imprisonment for violators. However, enforcement has been lax, and the Act fails to address the specific challenges faced by egg donors.
A child has the right to be brought up by his or her biological parents. It's actually part of what a child's rights are. Now, aside from the child being the product, the person who is carrying this child is also a product, because the medications and compounds you're going to have to pump into this person to be able to carry this pregnancy, they are not natural, and they come with significant risks. The process of carrying that child intrinsically means that that person is going to be exposed to DNA that is not hers, because the child is not hers.
Health advocates describe the current system as financially coercive, with many women putting their health at risk for financial gain. They emphasize the urgent need for legal protections to prevent exploitation and ensure ethical practices in the fertility industry. According to the Guttmacher Institute, an estimated 31% of Nigerian couples experience infertility after 12 months of trying to conceive. Additionally, 1 in 4 couples may require assisted reproductive technology. Yet, the lack of proper laws and policies leaves this demand largely unmet.
Many young ladies are driven to do this thing because of what? Money. Because they don't have money, you can pay them 2 million, you can pay them 2.5. Somebody who has not seen 500,000 naira before, and you give them 1 million naira, is a whole lot of money. And they'll say, okay, they'll jump at it. They never consider that this wasn't supposed to be the way it was from the beginning. God made a male and female. God instituted marriage. So surrogate somehow infringes in the right of marriage, families, destabilizing marriages. And, some ladies will say, why should I get married? Well, I can, buy a sperm, buy an egg, and I'll get a child. So what now happened to the value of raising families coming together? What happened to the institution of marriage? How God wanted it from the beginning. So these things violate our human rights, violate our values as Africans, because this is foreign to us.
As Nigeria's fertility industry continues to grow, the absence of effective regulation raises ethical, legal, and health concerns. Advocates are calling for immediate reforms to protect vulnerable women and ensure the industry operates within a safe and regulated framework. Only then can Nigeria address the growing needs of couples seeking assisted reproductive technology without compromising the well-being of its citizens.
Yes, that is the introduction to our front burner discussion this morning. We will be looking at the topic, egg donation in Africa, trends, ethics, and health implications. Egg donation has increasingly become a topic. I beg your pardon. A topic of interest across the African continent, driven by significant shifts in societal, medical, and economic landscape. While the practice holds the potential to fulfill the dreams of parenthood for many. Excuse me. It also raises critical questions about ethics, health, and regulations. So we will explore three key dimensions of this phenomenon: the rise of egg donation in Africa, what is driving this trend. We will begin by unpacking the factors contributing to the growing prominence of egg donation. Next, we will delve into the ethical and legal challenges as we look at the second talking point, ethical and legal considerations in egg donation. And finally, we will address the implications for egg donors, both physical and psychological. In our third talking point, health impact on egg donors, risk and support system.
Okay, so at this point, let's first and foremost, let's take a look at the polls and see what our viewers are saying about this particular topic. Do we have the polls, please? If we have it, can we have it on the screen? Okay, maybe as we get into the discussion, we'll get to see the polls. But right now, to make sense of this particular topic, we'll have guests. Okay, we'll have our guests, but then first let's take a look at the report on the rise of egg donation in Africa. Now, what is the driving trend? That is the major question here. So let's say the report on that, and when we come back, we'll begin the discussion.
Factors including advancement. Egg donation has emerged as a significant trend across Africa, largely fueled by the increasing demand for assisted reproductive technology, ART. Infertility remains a major concern for many couples on the continent, with an estimated 10% to 15% of couples experiencing infertility. Egg donation has become a lifeline for couples unable to conceive naturally due to various factors including advanced maternal age, genetic conditions, or medical issues affecting fertility. Advances in ART, including in vitro fertilization (IVF), have made egg donation a viable option for many. Fertility clinics are expanding across Africa, particularly in countries like South Africa, Nigeria, and Kenya, where medical tourism related to fertility treatment is on the rise. A 2023 report by the African Society of Reproductive Medicine highlighted that the fertility treatment industry in Africa is expected to grow by over 15% annually due to advances in technology and a rising number of people seeking solutions to infertility. Egg donation offers a financial incentive for women in many African countries where economic hardships often drives individuals to seek additional income. Donors can earn anywhere between $500 and $5,000 per cycle, depending on the country and the fertility clinic. For many women, especially in low-income households, this financial compensation is a significant motivator. However, critics argue that the monetary aspect may create an imbalance, raising concerns about potential exploitation. Cultural norms and societal views on fertility are evolving across Africa. Where infertility has traditionally been stigmatized, there is growing acceptance for alternative methods like egg donation, particularly in urban areas. Religious and cultural institutions that once opposed these practices are beginning to engage in conversations around its benefits. However, in some regions, egg donation still faces resistance due to traditional beliefs about lineage and biological ties.
Joining us now to discuss this is Abiola Adewusi, a fertility support practitioner and the director of MedBan Agency, a consulting firm providing support services to fertility clinics and patients, including counseling, donor and surrogate recruitment, and mental health support. With over 20 years in reproductive medicine, Abiola has worked with fertility institutions in the US and Nigeria, excelling in patient care and coordination. Abiola is the chairperson of the Fertility Support Professional Association, that is FSPA, and the second vice president of the Association for Fertility and Reproductive Health, Nigeria, and the member of several other related associations. And also joining us virtually is Ifoma George Ufot, an architect who works with the Foundation for African Cultural Heritage, FAC, a coalition of NGOs whose main thrust is to preserve the positive attributes of African cultures in modern times. Thank you very much, Abiola, for joining us.
Thank you. You're welcome.
On the show.
Thank you.
And of course, good morning to Madam Ufot. You're welcome. Thank you for joining us. Okay, I think a network issue there, and then, of course, once we cover, she will join us. Okay, let's go right into this discussion. We've seen like a tussle. Let me use that word. On one end, a lot of people are like, nah, that shouldn't be the case. It's not, our culture, our norms, and all of that. And on the other end, there are, this advocates that say, okay, fine, if someone cannot achieve pregnancy by themselves, why can't they get this, assisted, care and all of that? So let's start from the very basis. What do you think have contributed to the growing demand for egg donation in Africa? Or let's even just come from Nigeria.
Yeah. Let's come to Nigeria.
Yes.
Thank you very much for that question. And thanks for having me, because we do need forums like this to be able to educate people and let them know what really goes on from the practitioner's end of things. Because sometimes we can get sentimental. This is Africa, this is Nigeria. Having babies is a big deal. If you don't have one, you're vilified. If you have, you're, on top of the world. And for those that cannot have, they have the right to explore options of having babies so that they can complete their families as well. I mean, adoption is legal in Nigeria. So why can't adopt an egg if you cannot produce one of yours? So I just wanted to put that in, chip that in, so that we have a better perspective of how these things work. WHO has defined infertility as a disease. When we have a disease, we go to the hospital to be treated. And the reproductive endocrinologists or the reproductive technology experts have been trained or have learned how to help and assist couples that are going through infertility. So one of the treatment options is egg donation. It's third party. So one of the reasons why this trend has exploded, not even in Nigeria alone, not even in Africa, it's a global phenomenon. It's like an epidemic. Women are waiting too late to start having a baby. They rather face their careers, and then once they have arrived, maybe at 40, 45, 50, they now start thinking about baby. That's the wrong move. You need to start considering having babies early on in life as opposed to later in life. And that's the reason why the phenomenon of increased
egg donation
or assisted reproductive technology is in very high demand.
Well, now that you've put that out of the way, well, I would ask here, what's on the part of the people who actually seek, egg donations? Are there any, how do you put it now? I'm trying to frame my question the right way, but let me see how I can put it now. Okay, are there any influence, maybe external, internal, that are contributing to the rise of egg demands in especially in a country like Nigeria? Because it seems like all of a sudden the thing became
like a thing. Maybe you want to come from
even do it by themselves. We say, okay, let me opt for an egg donor.
No, that's not the case. if you go through the right channels, which is consulting with the right professionals, and I'm not talking about quacks and charlatans, I'm talking about professional caregivers in the area of assisted reproductive technology, they will never advise you to use egg donor if you can do it yourself. The only time they'll advise you to use egg donor is if they know you cannot produce viable eggs of your own. Now, let me tell you another thing. Patients that use egg donor do not want to accept the reality that they cannot produce their own eggs. I have patients that insist at the age of 50, I want to use my own eggs. And, you know, in order for you to satisfy her wish and her curiosity as to whether she's able to produce or not, you can actually put her through what is called a therapeutic treatment so that she can see by herself that she cannot produce eggs of her own. And those are, I mean, it takes time for patients to actually accept. This is never a first option. This is a last resort.
So you say that the major influence is from the inability to actually
Correct.
produce your own eggs.
Correct.
Okay.
We'll come back to you. There's a lingering question on that. I'll come back to that. But let's see if we can speak with Madam Ufoma now. Hello. Good morning, Madam Ufoma. Can you hear me?
She's still frozen.
Okay. All right. We'll get back to her. Okay. Now, I like the fact that all of this has been laid out, that egg donor only comes in when the recipient or the woman in question can't, produce her own eggs. Now, the question, I think the first report we saw had to do with, when you talk about a family, a father, a mother, and then, they come together, have their own children. But I think the fear for those kind of groups is the fact that some other kind of family that we are beginning to see, maybe not in Nigeria, but in other climes, where you have maybe a mother and a mother, a father and a father, and they can go in and ask for this assisted, reproductive technology. I think that is where the fear is coming from. That if we have this kind of technology and anybody can assess it, this is not the God-given way of going about having children. What are your thoughts about this? You being a professional.
I actually agree. I mean, there is no, I don't think anybody as a Nigerian.
Okay, can you hold that,
sure.
please? Madam Ufoma is with us. Good morning, Ma. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Oh.
Okay.
Yes,
good.
I can. Good morning.
Good morning. I hope you've been following the conversation.
In and out. Network has been a bit off here.
All right.
Sorry for that.
We're so sorry about that. Now, let's quickly look at how cultural perceptions of fertility and societal pressures impact the acceptance and the practice of egg donation in Africa. Because of the cultural beliefs or cultural values, especially here in Nigeria, talking about father, mother, and the children, and they must come together, have their own children. And then we have this egg donor thing. What do you think is happening? Will the culture, be an impeding factor to accepting egg donation in these climes?
Thank you for your question. I want to start by asking that question, turning it around. Why do we need to go to such an extreme? I see egg donation as an extreme to solve a problem. And because from the premise that children are a right, children are not, it's not a right, it's a gift. We read in the Bible, and even at home, we've known that children are gifts. So if it's a gift, why are you snatching it? But that is how I see artificial reproductive technology as snatching a gift. If it's a gift, let technology help us to access the gift, not to snatch it.
Okay. The word you use, snatch, is what I'm trying to understand now, ma'am. Because now, okay,
Exactly.
fine. Yes. And you said let technology assist and not snatch. So do you
that
think
what is happening?
Is technology not assisting when it comes to egg donation?
Okay, let's look at the egg donation. The doctor would help in that. The process of extracting the egg from a woman's womb, okay, and then so it's manipulated by man, and then they have to freeze it, and they don't just take one, they take several. If I'm correct, they take several, they freeze it, and then when it's needed, they now take extract the sperm of the man. And then the intimate action between the husband and the wife is now done in a test tube in a lab by another hand. So you're starting a gift. The gift that is a child. Now matching it with technology.
Okay, ma'am. I see your point, and I think I want to, kind of agree with you to a large extent, being the fact that the intimate aspect has been taken away.
It's not natural.
And it's not natural. Now, let's look at the legal framework. Maybe let's talk about maybe if there are proper regulations. Do we still have Madam Mufoma? Okay.
I'm back.
All right, thank you. I was saying that maybe if there are proper regulations, maybe proper regulatory framework for egg donation, maybe this might change the perspective of some people. Hello? Okay. Wow. Network is not being so, favorable right now. Hello, Madam Mufoma. Oh, okay. Please, once Madam Mufoma is back, we would like to hear from her. But we still have a lot to unpack, and I want us to go quickly at it. Let's quickly go, because I've already mentioned regulatory aspect, which has to do with ethics and then the law.
Legal framework.
Yes, legal framework. We have our second report on this, titled Ethical and Legal Consideration in Egg Donor. Let's quickly see this report, and then we'll be back to talk more on this.
The rapid rise of egg donation in Africa has outpaced the development of ethical and legal frameworks to regulate the practice. This has led to significant challenges that require urgent attention to ensure the protection of both donors and recipients. Many African countries lack comprehensive laws governing egg donation and other ART practices. For instance, in countries like Nigeria and Ghana, fertility clinics often operate without strict oversight, raising concerns about safety standards and donor protection. In contrast, South Africa has established legal guidelines through the National Health Act, but even here, enforcement remains inconsistent. Egg donation raises ethical questions, particularly regarding the potential exploitation of donors. Without clear guidelines, donors may not fully understand the long-term implications of the procedure. Issues surrounding involved consent are prevalent, as some women may feel pressured into donating eggs without adequate information. Compensation, while an incentive, also raises ethical concerns about commodifying human reproductive material. The lack of transparency in donor-recipient relationships is another ethical challenge. In many cases, donors are promised anonymity, but inadequate data protection laws can expose their identities. Furthermore, recipients often lack access to detailed information about donors, which may lead to complications in the future, particularly regarding genetics or medical histories. To address these concerns, advocacy groups are calling for the implementation of standardized guidelines that prioritize donor and recipient rights, ensure informed consent, and establish fair compensation practices.